Hi, good evening. Wanted to welcome all Fresno State students who are joining us for the first President's Forum for students of the fall 2020 semester. And we will begin in just a few minutes. We're going to wait here to make sure that we let everyone into the room, into the webinar, so that they can participate fully. So it'll be just a few, I'd say a minute or so, and then I'd be happy to introduce you to our panelists for today. So thank you for joining us, and it'll be just a few seconds. Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready to begin. Hi, everyone. My name is Patty Wade, and I'll wait for the camera to turn on. Welcome to Fresno State's President's Forum for Students. I'm the Director of Communications here at Fresno State. I graduated many moons ago from the Craig School of Business, proud Bulldog alum. And I wanted to introduce you to our two panelists today. Welcome our Fresno State students. I will be reading aloud your questions as you submit them. And then we will provide an opportunity for President Castro and Hisham to answer them. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to President Fresno State, Joseph Castro, and then also Interim President of the ASI, Hisham Kutab. So Hisham, do you have a minute that you'd like to share some thoughts around the semester, how things are going for you before we start taking students' questions?
Certainly. Thank you so much, Patty, for giving me the opportunity. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank all the students for attending today. I know now more than ever, with all the chaos and hecticness going around in the world and around us in our community, it's very reassuring to know that you have a tight-knit community and a tight-knit family around you, especially knowing that your fellow Bulldogs are now your family as well, and that they're here to support you in times of hardship. You know, now more than ever, it's no longer I as a student from the Craig School of Business or I as a student at all, but rather us as a Fresno State campus. It's no longer we as students and them as faculty or administration, but rather we together as Bulldogs. And lastly, it's no longer Fresno State and the rest of the Fresno community, but rather us together as a community in Fresno, as well as a community in the state of California, especially with our fellow CSU sister schools as well. You know, especially these times, I will say, you know, it's definitely a new challenge, and challenges are scary at first, but like everything else, taking it one step at a time, using the resources around you, and having fun and looking at the positive side of it, anything can be accomplished. You know, taking it one step at a time. And the first step I took was definitely to be more organized from my own end. As you can see by my background, I'm not the most organized person, and I will admit that. But something that's really helped me is Google Calendar, especially when it comes to school. Being able to schedule all my classes as well as any time that I need to study with the links and the proper assignments in it has helped me out tremendously. As to the resources, using every resource there is to have, whether it's asking fellow classmates or even taking advantage of all the resources that we have on campus, such as a hotspot. Personally, I don't have the strongest Wi-Fi, and if I wasn't using this right now, I'd be cutting in and out just like that. But thankfully, the resources are there for all of us to use. And I highly encourage you all to take advantage of those resources, such as all the Discover E tablets, as well as the hotspots, as well as the student needs aspect that are being delivered through the health center, as well as our student cupboard. And lastly, we need to always remember that we need to play our role. You know, with everything that's going on in the community, it's very tough. You seem to think that 2020, one tragedy after the other is only going to happen. And it's completely scary, in all honesty. It is 100% scary. But what really gets me through it is knowing that it's no longer about myself anymore, that I'm no longer that one student who has that one assignment due at that one time, or my ankle's only hurting me, but rather we're all in this together. So please do your part, wear your masks, social distance, and remember, it's no longer about us as individuals, but us together as a community and as a family, and we need to collaborate together as a team. So thank you again for this great opportunity, and thank you so much for attending today. Please share all this information that you hear today with your fellow family members and your fellow Bulldogs, because we really do appreciate you, and we really do need your help in times of like these.
Those are wise words. Thank you very much, Hisham. President Castro, I'm curious, before we take students' questions, if you have any thoughts you'd like to share with them.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Patty, for facilitating our conversation today. And thank you, Hisham, for participating. I didn't realize we had a Craig School business thing going over here.
We do.
I'm so happy that all the students were able to join us tonight. I think Hisham really hit the nail on the head. This is such an extraordinary time in so many ways, very difficult and challenging, at times unbelievable, scary, lots of different emotions. I know that many people feel overwhelmed. I certainly do at times. I think Hisham is right. This is a time for us to pull together as one Bulldog family. And I do appreciate all the support that has been provided to our university from our community. And I want to applaud your resilience as students. You've leaned into your education in a powerful way. And for our university to have the highest, largest entering class in our history right now, and very likely one of the highest, if not the highest, enrollments in our history overall. It says so much about you as students and your families, that you are dedicated to your education and that you're looking ahead to a bright future. And I'm certainly looking ahead to how Fresno State will be stronger than ever before after COVID. And, you know, through COVID, we will remain strong as well. We have lots of services available for you. And I know sometimes the challenge is knowing about those and tapping into those, but they are there for you. And I'm committed, and so is our entire staff. And I know our faculty are doing their best to be flexible with scheduling and to support you in the best way possible. We're all trying to pull together right now. I know there have been questions about why certain fees are being charged during this time, and I thought I would address that. As Hisham said, you know, we have so many different support services on campus, and so your fees actually go towards very important services, mental health, counseling, other health services that are available to you, if not in person, virtually. I know there have been concerns about why am I paying for the fee for the rec center or the student union, but it's just like having a house. We have a mortgage on both of those facilities, and we must continue to cover those costs so that the facility, all the programs will remain for all of you over the long term. And I know that there are a lot of financial challenges right now, and many people are suffering. And if you are in a situation where you need support, we have the Good Samaritan Fund there for you. And we just had an infusion of funding from a private foundation to help address some of those needs here on campus. So I urge you to look at that if you're in need of that kind of support. And I know that Chancellor White made the decision today about the spring for the CSU system. And for us, it will mean that we'll be predominantly virtual in the spring. But we will also continue to have some courses in person. And I've asked Provost Sandoval, Jimenez Sandoval, and Vice President Astone to bring together our task force. And I know Hisham was part of that, faculty, students, staff, and they're going to come together and give us a recommended plan that I'll take to Chancellor White. And my plan, my hope is that in October, I'll be able to share with you more details about what the spring is going to look like in terms of which classes are going to be virtual and which ones will be in person. And I promise you that for the ones that we do in person, we'll do them as carefully as possible to keep people safe. And if you don't feel safe being on campus, you're not going to be required to be here. But we've been doing very well as a community, keeping our cases as close to zero as possible. We have had about 5 cases since classes started, and we've been able to quarantine and support those folks. And you compare that to the hundreds or thousands in some cases at other universities, we're doing so well. And I thank you for your hard work and following the different protocols of washing hands and masking and social distancing. As Hisham said, those things are really important, and yet they're hard to do at times because you crave that interaction with your friends and family. But I ask you to continue being vigilant because that will enable us to continue having in-person courses here in a safe manner. And again, I thank you for being with us tonight. I'm looking forward to hearing from you directly, and Hisham and I will do our best to answer your questions and to hear your concerns. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you, Dr. Castro. So now students, for those of you in the audience, I do encourage you to begin submitting your questions in the Q&A. We're not using the chat function tonight. So in the Q&A, feel free to type away and ask your questions. Just so you know, we are recording this session. So if for some reason you're not able to stay on through 7 o'clock, we'll be posting this recording, I would say around Monday. And then also when the questions are longer, I may not read them verbatim. So just so you know, I am posing as many questions as I can, but I won't necessarily read them verbatim just to be able to read as many as possible. So are we ready for questions that are coming in? Okay, so this first one has to do with considering today's announcement around the spring semester. Will there be consideration for the lecture component courses to switch to a hybrid model? So one day online and one day on campus, rather than solely lab component courses being on campus?
It's a great question. The answer is that's pretty unlikely to happen in the short term because of the situation with COVID in our community. And the governor actually put out guidelines recently that really restricted the kinds of activities that we can have on campus. And it was really around lab courses and those connected to accreditation. So I think that we're going to do as much as we can virtually, and then reserve just those other occasions where we really must do face-to-face. So I don't see a lot of hybrid right now, but perhaps as we move forward, depending on what occurs with vaccines and so forth, we could start to look at other models like that in the future after the springtime.
Great, thank you. One of the questions that I've been thinking about is, for the freshmen, those students who, around 6,000 of them, who really haven't had the experience on campus, What ideas do you have, including Hisham, for how students can feel a sense of community when they're actually not on campus?
Definitely, and that's an excellent question. You know, that's something just like when I came to Fresno State as a freshman, it's the same exact answer, is get involved. Fresno State has so many great opportunities for you to get involved and to meet new people, but also to open up so many new doors for you. You know, that's what I took away during my freshman year, is because I joined one club. After I joined that initial club, I was able to join about five right after that within a span of 6 months. Now, I might have gone a little bit crazy there in all honesty, and it might be a little bit different when it's a virtual setting, but still get involved. The clubs are transitioning to online settings. The opportunities in the organizations are still transitioning to online settings as well. So there's still going to be a club fair going on that's actually going to be put on by student involvement that's coming up real soon, in which you can actually meet a lot of the clubs. But rather than just waiting for that, you can check out all the clubs that are being offered on engage.com through Fresno State. And specifically there, you can find out about any club that you're interested in and possibly even start your own club if you'd like to do that as well. I promise you there's going to be something and someone else out there to support you and to be able to assist you during those times as well. And having a club, that's the best part about it. I've often found myself that I'm enjoying those Zoom calls a lot more than a lot of the other ones as well, but knowing that I still have that community because I was involved. So please get as involved as you can.
Great, thank you. Let's see which other questions we have coming out. This one has to do with counseling services. Does the university have any plans to expand counseling services? Since most students do not have the option to actually see a counselor once a week, how does the school feel they are meeting the needs of students?
That's a great question. The answer is that students actually, through the student leadership, actually decided to increase that fee a little bit to add counselors at our counseling center. And the goal was really to try to make sure that we met the demand that existed so that there would not be lengthy wait times and there would be a diverse folks that you could choose from, gender, race, ethnicity, and by and large, we've been able to do that. We would continue to monitor that, and if we need to add additional counselors, we would come back to the student leadership and see if we need to assess a larger fee, because tuition is not covering all those costs. So it would really be a discussion with the student leaders. And Hisham, I think you were part of some of those conversations, and you might want to add to that in terms of that particular service and whether we need to do more in the future.
That's definitely a great point, President Castro, and that's an excellent question as well. Now more than ever, having those resources are extremely helpful. We've actually seen an increased number of people attending and actually following up with the meetings and actually being there as well from the most recent numbers that I've seen as well. When we did go about that as student leaders, I was actually going into my sophomore year that year, and we kind of saw it as a cost benefit analysis. Although we're increasing the fees barely by not that significant of amount, the amount of return that students are getting is greatly impactful. I always like to say I'm a big Taco Bell fan, not because I love the food, but I know I can get more than full for only $5, where the box will fill me up. And this isn't necessarily an endorsement of Taco Bell, but it's definitely the best bang for your buck and a definitely great cost benefit analysis. So although we are paying a little bit more, we're receiving so much more in return as well.
Great points. Thank you, Hisham.
Patty, if I could just add, if there are any students out there that are having difficulty accessing those services, please let Hisham or me know, and we'll make sure that we provide any assistance or support that we can.
Great. I'm sure they'll appreciate hearing that. This next question has to do with hotspots, which Hisham was just showing us his hotspot. It says that all hotspots have been taken already, and the student seems to be struggling to do any work or meetings because they have almost no internet. Is there another way for this person to get a hotspot?
Yeah, I'd suggest they email me. I don't think that we've completely run out. We've ordered more about 3 different times, and it's really important for us to meet the demand that you have. So if you don't have a reliable connection or no connection at all, we want to support you. So please, you can send me an email, and I'll be happy to follow up with you. It's josephcastro@csufresno.edu.
Definitely, if I could just add a little bit onto that, we're matching as much demand as we can, of course, but I'm sure that you all actually received an email earlier today from University Communication talking about low cost or no cost alternatives to receive Wi-Fi as well. Some of those were actually as low as $10 a month for up to 1 terabyte of digital data as well. And there's several different resources listed on that. And I highly recommend you go through those. And some of them are even free as well.
Great point. So a couple of questions coming in now are around commencement and graduation. And we knew that that would be on people's minds because they're so excited about completing their degrees. So I'll merge a couple of questions together. What plans are there for graduation, and is it likely that it will even happen this spring?
Thank you, Patty, and thank you for the question. First of all, I want to say to all the folks that are graduating this year that I know it's been a different year than what you expected. And I had hoped that we could have a graduation ceremony in May. I just don't yet know if it's going to be safe to do that. And so we'll be communicating more in the coming weeks about that. But I promise you that when we do get a chance to celebrate safely, we're going to include all of the graduates who missed their traditional graduation. And we're going to have one heck of a party at St. Mark's Center. I promise you that. I don't know, Hisham, do you want to add to that?
Certainly. So I actually am a graduating senior this year, specifically in the spring semester. So graduation is near and dear to my heart, obviously. And it's like President Castro said, we're looking at it and we obviously want to go about anything that we can do safely and to make sure that everybody being involved is as safe as possible. But like everything else, it's a day at a time. And just as you're finding out information and everything else going on with the world, we're also finding out new information and everything else going on in the world. So we please ask you to stay patient with us, but no, especially coming from me, I will do everything I can to make sure that we can get a safe and a very fun commencement party as well.
That sounds great. Something to look forward to. At the beginning of the semester, there were going to be approximately 100 in-person classes, or what we call face-to-face classes. That number was reduced to about 82. And so one of the questions is around the spring. Do we think that the same classes that were offered in person this semester will be offered in the spring semester in person?
That's a great question. I don't yet know. I think it will depend on what our department chairs and our deans come up with. But I would assume that that's a pretty safe approach, that if we've done it in person before, if we can do it safely again, we would do that. And then there'd be perhaps some courses that weren't offered in the fall that would be offered in the spring face-to-face. So please stay tuned. That's one of the things that our task force is going to work on. And we'll make sure that we, as we've done before, give clarity about which courses we can offer in person. We made that adjustment in the number of courses in person after the governor's guidelines came out, and were a little more restrictive than we had anticipated. So that's the other issue, is we'll have to make sure that our decisions are aligned with public health advice and the state's advice, the chancellor's advice, and we'll be as thoughtful as we can. And again, it's designed to keep you as safe as possible and to help you progress to degree in a timely way.
On a related note, I'm sorry, Hisham, I know that you served on the task force over the summer to get prepared for the fall. Can you give students a little bit of an insight on how the task force worked together and how you think that might benefit them looking towards the spring?
Definitely. And it's like you mentioned, Patty, it was together. It's truly a collaborative effort and where it's a team effort and no longer, as I mentioned earlier, administration or faculty or students, but all of us together. And what was so unique about the task force, and I'm super thankful for this, was that we brought in people from different perspectives as well as different operations. So that way we make sure that there was no stone unturned to make sure that we take that options into consideration and those viewpoints into consideration. Especially being one of the only students on there, it was definitely tough advocating for all the needs of students, but we did our best and we made sure that students from different backgrounds, from different majors, and in all capacities, were still being heard as much as we can. And that's something that the administration, the faculty worked with us intensely as well about it to make sure that the students' well-being, but also their level of education isn't affected.
Good to hear your perspective on that. Thank you. There is a short but sweet question around the new student union. What is the status of the new student union?
That's a great question. Well, it's still planned to be done, I hope, in the fall of 2021. We had been working through the construction period during much of COVID, and then because of some fire marshal regulations, we have been paused for a bit. But I am told by Vice President Astone that we're getting close to restarting, and we're very, very excited to get that project done because it's going to transform the experience for students and even faculty and staff here on the campus. And very thankful for all the support from the students for this project because you all are the ones that decided to do it. And we've been, very fortunate to get some private funding to make it an even more special space. So stay tuned. We'll keep you posted on progress, but my hope is it'll be ready to go, by the end of fall 2021.
Wonderful. Thank you. There is a question from what appears to be a graduate student. It's a little technical, so I'll try to read this clearly. What is available for graduate students regarding performing theses, dissertation research on campus, for instance, collecting human subject data?
I'm sorry, Patty, could you repeat that for me one more time?
You bet. This is coming from a graduate student perspective.
Yeah.
And again, it's a little technical. This person is asking what is available for graduate students regarding performing thesis dissertation research on campus.
Yeah, there have definitely been some restrictions on that activity. If you would like, you can send me an email and I would consult with the provost on that and get you a response. But again, we're trying to keep people safe here. So there have been some changes in our protocol, but I encourage you to send me a note and I promise you that we'll get a response to you quickly.
Great, thank you. The next one, this person sounds a little frustrated. Classes often fill up before I can get in, and waitlisting is more stressful online when you can't crash the class. How is it decided which new classes get added?
A great question. And the answer is that we're constantly looking at how many students are interested in certain classes. And of course, there are rules around how large classes can be for each professor. So what we try to do is add sections of courses that are impacted, and we'll add those depending on the number of students that need that particular course. So I know that that can be frustrating. And again, if you have any specific challenges that you want to let me know about, I'm happy to look into those. But I know the provost and our deans have been as diligent as they possibly can in adding sections, because our goal is to help you get to your degree in a timely way. So we want to support you in doing that. And I'm sorry that you've been frustrated. If there's a particular example or two that you want me to look into, I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. This next question is a little long, so I'm going to try to synthesize it. It has to do with charging tuition. This person says that Fresno State has only 2 designations for students, either half-time or full-time. And the question is, why does Fresno State employ a policy that hinders students instead of helping them? For example, why does Fresno State not charge students according to units being taken?
I appreciate the question. And I know, again, everybody is counting their dollars. This is one of those times when that's happening. But I do want you to know that we charge the lowest tuition and fees of any public university in all of California. And we're trying to keep our costs manageable so that that will continue. I will certainly look into why we don't charge by unit, but I have a feeling that it's based on our systems and how we can bill in a timely way. But I will look into that for you. And I just want you to know, though, that we also have great financial aid. So I want to make sure you're applying for that. We give out about $250 million in financial aid, and the Good Samaritan Fund is there, of course, as well. So if you are in need of financial assistance or support, please let us know, and we'll be as helpful as we can be.
And if I could just add one small more piece, is about the scholarships as well. There's so many scholarships, and it's so easy to apply to a majority of them by filling out the general application, which actually opens up on October 3rd. I highly recommend that you fill that out. I personally have filled it out, not knowing for any specific one, but just filling out the general information. And then a month later, I found out I was a recipient of a scholarship, and it's truly very helpful as well. So I highly recommend you take advantage of that as well.
Great. I know some of the questions are a little technical, but this one has more to do with morale, which I think is an important one that we're all struggling with. Between the pandemic, the protests, and now air quality and wildfires, it seems like everything that can go wrong this year has gone wrong. It's so discouraging. What can you say to give us hope?
Sham, you want to start, or would you like me to?
Up to you, President Castro. I'm open for either way.
Oh, please go ahead.
That's an excellent question. In all honesty, it is a very tough question to answer. Morale, more than anything, well, at least for my own experience, what really helps me is, again, like I mentioned earlier, it's not going through it as an independent anymore, as an individual, or not just me as a member of a certain college or of a certain group or a certain culture. It's us together. And that's something that I've really acknowledged more than ever this year. And I'm considered an optimist. I like to look at the glass half full rather than half empty. So I like to find the silver lighting. And the silver lighting for me is finding out that there's ways for me to connect with others rather than just face to face. I've actually been able to connect with a lot of my friends who live all across the country and internationally as well through Zoom more than I ever would have thought of before. And it's also finding out different ways that we can connect, that it no longer has to be us grabbing lunch together, but rather us possibly cooking lunch separately in our own safe distances using Zoom or FaceTime or any other platform of communication. Something else is I always like to think of how thankful I am for what we do have and the time that we're in. Imagining going through this pandemic 30 or even 20 years ago, where you don't have the level of technology, the level of communication, and the level of resources that are at our hands, it makes it so much more easier to go through these tough times. And in all honesty, they are very tough times. But just remember, we have to be thankful for what we have, and that everything does get better eventually. And to take advantage of all the resources, and we're not alone anymore. It's us together.
It's well said, Hisham. I think it is looking for those silver linings. That's how I've tried to approach this pandemic. And sometimes, I felt like I'm in the middle of a dark tunnel because it's just layer after layer of issues and challenges. But, I think I'd urge you to think about your family and friends that you can spend time with. Think about the kinds of activities that you can do that make you happy. I've been enjoying cooking with my wife and family, and we try different meals. That's been fun, doing that together. Reading more. I watch different things online that I didn't have a chance to do before, podcasts. So I'm trying to learn more. I'm trying to take an opportunity right now to enrich myself intellectually. And it's different than before, but I'd encourage you to think about what you can do. I know the smoke has made it difficult, but I've been spending a lot of time outside more than ever. So I know this is such a tough time, and we all have different circumstances, but if you can think about the things that you can do and maybe experiment, learn new things, and just try to take advantage of this opportunity. It's almost as if time has stopped right now in certain ways. So I just encourage you to think about what those silver linings are and how you can be happy in a difficult time.
And please, if you have any recommendations for good TV shows, good podcasts, please let me know as well, or any good books. I'd love to take a read at them as well.
Actually, the New York Times has that daily, which is really good. I listen to that, and David Plouffe has that great show. I've been finding all these different podcasts. I'm a public policy guy, so I love the James Carville has one. I don't know. Have you been listening or watching any of those, Hisham?
I've actually gone into podcasts a lot more than I thought I ever would. I wasn't somebody who hopped on the trend early on or anything like that, but I recently found out that listening to them is a lot more interesting than I thought. It's like a TV series through just listening through audio, which was actually allowed me to come up with the characters and all the imagination side myself, which it actually makes it like a live movie that I get to direct and I get to broadcast as well. I think that's something very unique. I will say, The Office is an excellent show, but after about the sixth time, it starts to slow down a bit, but I still love it every day.
That's great. My son loves The Office. I've been introducing him to different shows that I enjoyed when I was younger. So he's getting, that's been one of the silver linings too, is kind of, we're going to watch this show together and enjoy it.
Thank you for sharing those perspectives. This next question is going back to teaching in the classroom. This person writes, there's quite a bit of research that shows the more active learning professors do in the classroom, the more information that students actually retain and that failure rates decrease. So why don't all professors do active learning?
That's a really great question. I do know that each faculty member has their own teaching style. And what we've done during this pandemic is we've tried to meet them where they're at and support them in their own development. It was a very challenging time for everybody in March when we had to pivot to virtual in 4 days. But what we spent a lot of time over the summer doing is supporting those professors so that they would be, more effective in the classroom. And I think if you can, in a gentle way, give them some feedback and encouragement and maybe some ideas. We're all learning right now, and you may know a lot more about certain ways of using technology than they do. And I think our faculty are open to your suggestions. So I'd encourage you to think about that as well. And Hisham, maybe you have some strategies that have worked for you.
Definitely. And I think the theme of tonight is collaboration more than ever. You know, we no longer can look at stuff from our own perspective. We're just to actually more than ever walk a mile in other people's shoes, of course, because you need to understand, just like how we as students have very challenging times right now, some of those same exact challenges are happening to the faculty as well. So possibly the time of the class isn't the best suited, or their environment or the settings around them aren't the best as well. But I will recommend is advising your professor. Again, it's a collaboration. You know, it's a new time that nobody is an expert in whatsoever, and that giving feedback and learning from each other about how to go about this is something that I've truly found. A prime example was at the end of my classes, some of my professors actually asked what's going well, what can we improve, and how can we continue to do this even better. And that's the best thing that we can always do is, although the status quo might be great, let's strive for more. Let's find out what's not working, and let's continue to grow as well.
Great points. Since you were both talking about TV shows and podcasts, somebody jumped in and recommended the Umbrella Academy, which I have not heard of, but I just looked it up and it's on Netflix. So
Umbrella Academy. Okay.
Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, if you're missing sports, I've been watching Friday Night Lights, which is a great series around football, and it actually it reminds me some of Fresno, some of the ways in which Fresno is also, operates. So anyway, you triggered that idea. Great. Maybe we'll get some more suggestions here that Patty, you and I and Hisham can take home.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a question here around diversity and inclusion. What is Fresno State doing to prioritize diversity and inclusion on campus? And how is the university supporting students of color during this time?
Great. That's a terrific question. As you might know, Fresno State has three core values, and one of them is diversity. The others are distinction and discovery. But diversity is a core value for us, and what that means is that we support diversity and inclusion in all of our policies and practices, and we're doing better each and every day at that. We're doing a lot of work as it relates to our curriculum, our academic programs. The new ethnic studies requirement just passed, so that's going to be a very important change for students. Each student will then get the benefit of taking at least one ethnic studies course before they graduate. We're increasing the diversity of our students. We're increasing the diversity of our faculty and our staff in all different ways. And I'm personally accountable to the chancellor for our progress in those different areas of diversity. We also have a President's Commission on Human Relations and Equity, which has really worked hard to ensure that diversity exists in all parts of the university, and they also sponsor programming to raise awareness about different aspects of diversity. And I'll give you an example. This year, we're going to have a program that focuses on educating those who are formerly incarcerated or even currently incarcerated. And we'll be highlighting our Project Rebound students who've done such an extraordinary job here at Fresno State, and it's part of a national effort. That's just one example of diversity, but there are many different examples, and we're always open to ideas and suggestions. And as Hisham said earlier, it's a collaboration. So if there are areas that you'd like us to focus more attention on, I'd love to hear that. And I'd love, Hisham, if you jump in here from your perspective, what diversity means here at Fresno State.
Certainly. You actually took the words right out of my mind, where I was going to say the three, what we do stand for as Fresno State, with the three different: discovery, distinction, and of course, diversity more than ever. And, times like these is where I've been super thankful for a lot of the settings and resources that we have. As I'm sure many of you know, we have the Cross Culture Center, where it's an excellent facility. And although we can't use it now in person, it still has transitioned smoothly, extremely smoothly, to a virtual setting as well. I know we were talking about podcasts earlier, and one of the podcasts I was actually listening to was a podcast presented by them specifically about men of color and the success of men of color. And that's really resonated very well with me. And they have so many other podcasts, but also so many other platforms that have transitioned virtually as well. And I highly recommend you take a look at but not just take a look, but you take advantage of all of those opportunities as well.
Sorry, I'm unmuting myself. Earlier in our conversation, we talked about how challenging, in particular, this situation could be for freshmen. And a freshman did write in, so I'd like to read this person's comments.
Thank you.
Being a freshman at Fresno State, I realize that we are held under certain CSU guidelines, but I also see that I am missing out on key aspects of my courses from not being on campus. I see other CSU students that are able to go back to their respective schools. So why is this not the same for Fresno State? Also, all of my classes being asynchronous, why would I stay at Fresno State?
Great. I appreciate that question.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first thing I'd say is that we have terrific faculty, very committed faculty and staff. And because of these circumstances, we're not able to do the in-person instruction as much as we'd like. But since you're a freshman, there will be time later for that to happen when it's safer. And our decisions around what is offered on campus and what's offered virtually are really rooted in our local health conditions. And there are some variations by campus. And I would say the variations really relate to the different health conditions in those communities. So I know Humboldt, for example, has a higher percentage of in-person courses than we have, but they also have a different health profile there than we do. In many respects, unfortunately, we're one of the hot spots for COVID in the country. So it means that we must be as careful as possible. And that's why we've kind of constrained the number of in-person courses. There are some campuses that are completely virtual right now, and we decided that wasn't right for us, and we need to have some number of those. And we'll continue on that path. So it's really about trying to protect the health and safety for you, for your faculty, for your families. And I think if you look around the country, those universities that have really been more aggressive in bringing students onto campus, they're all seeing a high number of cases. And that's very dangerous for everybody. So we're working really hard to avoid that. And I think we're making the right decisions. And again, I'm sorry as a freshman that timing is not better for you. But the good part of it is that we still have some more time together after we get through COVID. And I promise you it's going to be so much fun after we get back together again to our new normal. Hisham, you want to add anything to that?
Definitely. I just want to touch on that last aspect that you touched about coming back. And I think I very envy you for that, because that's hopefully by then the new student union will be there as well. And just being able to enjoy it again. I can talk for hours on hours on hours about how much I've enjoyed my time at Fresno State. But rather than boring you all for the next few hours, you are right that we are part of the CSU system. And that's one unique aspect of it. But something that we always need to remember is that although we're part of the system, each sister school of ours of the 23 campuses belongs to its own county, to its own city, and to its own regulations as well. We essentially can't put something to cover everything that happens in the CSU because there's so many moving parts and so many unique aspects of it as well. Unfortunately, a good friend of mine that goes to San Diego State actually just informed me that on Wednesday they had announced a confirmed cases of students specifically of 440 and then 4 probable cases as well. You know, and it's very unfortunate for them to be going through something like that. And that's why I've been very appreciative of both our administration, our faculty, and our students for understanding how severe of an issue this is, and to understanding and collaborating with us to understand that maybe we shouldn't go full steam ahead, and that maybe we should be looking at others, maybe that we should be taking every precaution that we possibly can as well.
Great perspectives. Thank you. Let's see, what unexpected positives have you seen through the challenges of the past few months? I mean, we always talk about, or at least there's that phrase of silver linings. So this one student is asking, what types of unexpected positives have you both encountered?
Sham, you want to start?
Sure. Definitely spending times with my sisters. So I have 4 sisters, and we, 3 of us or 4 of us out of the 5 actually all live at home. And as much as you would think that gets quite annoying, it's been a lot of fun just seeing my younger sisters filming TikToks and making fun of them about it, or my older sister and I talking about we never had it that easy and complaining about my younger sisters. It's definitely just being able to spend time with family more than ever, but also teaching them hobbies of mine to them as well. I'm a big avid fan of spike ball. And if you know anything about spike ball, it's a great sport and it really helps you stay in decent shape, I would say. And it's a great way of physical therapy as well, of just being out there as well. So I actually taught my younger sisters and both my older sisters just so we can start playing as a family. That's definitely a silver lining. They're not at the level that I want them to be quite yet, just to keep it challenging, but it's learning new talents from them, filming TikToks with them, which I thought I would never enjoy, but also just spending time together. And as you mentioned, President Castro, growing as an individual. During these times, I've gone ahead and challenged myself to new things that I never would have. I redesigned my room. I also went about actually organizing my life. I would barely ever use Google Calendar prior to this. And now I found out that Google Calendar is truly my best friend, and that I am very sad that I didn't use that throughout my entire time at college. But you got to find the opportunities and all the new connections you've made throughout this as well. Something else I would like to highlight is the very fun game called Mafia, which I used to love playing with my friends in person, obviously, whenever we would take road trips or travel for a competition through mock trial or any other event as well. Turns out that transfers over to Zoom very, very well, and is actually way more fun via Zoom than it is in person. So find new ways to connect with one another. I think that's the biggest thing that I took away.
Love that, Sham. I would answer it the same way. My old life before COVID was events, sometimes multiple events every single night, even on, Saturday nights as well. And so I didn't get to spend as much time with my children, especially my 9-year-old, as I do now. And so we get to have dinner together on almost every night. We swim together, we play together, we all have bikes now and ride together. I've really enjoyed that part of this. I even wash dishes now. I was not able to do that very often. I wash clothes, wash dishes, things that actually take my mind off some of the stressful things. So I've definitely, in some respects, I'm happier now, even though it's more stressful during the day. I feel closer to my family and to a lot of my friends, and I've just been learning a lot. So I just, again, encourage you to try to find those silver linings wherever you can. And I know that many of you are facing extraordinarily difficult circumstances. So if you're in that situation, again, we want to be as supportive of you as we can.
I think I'd rather play spike ball than wash dishes myself, but to each his own, I think. There seems to be a couple of students who may have joined us a little late, and they are also asking around the the chances of graduation ceremony in 2021. So I thought maybe we could, close up with those final questions and then maybe a couple of final thoughts from both of you.
So Patty, you said graduation is one of them?
Yeah, there a couple of students are asking, will there be graduations in the spring, or will it just be played by ear?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a play by ear for the traditional graduation, but to get to Hisham's point, one of the things that we could think about, if we can't do the Save Mart celebration in May, what are some other ways that we could celebrate? And we could get creative about that. I'm certainly open to ideas that you might have. And if we are not able to celebrate together in May, we'll find the soonest time thereafter to do so, even if it's not, under the regular schedule. So there's no need for us to adhere to that. If we can do it in June instead of May, we'll do it then. So let's see how things unfold with the pandemic, and it'll be dependent on us being able to do it safely for you and your family. But I don't know, Hisham, what do you think as a senior? Are there any other ideas that we might consider here for graduation?
Certainly. It's like you mentioned, there's no more so much of a status quo, and that we're all going through a new aspect of life and what a new graduation might look like. There's so many different platforms that we've seen, and luckily there's so much information out there for us to learn from other universities and other high schools as well, and see what they're going about it. And hopefully we can adapt one of those to ourselves. Although it would have been very nice, and not saying that this is out of a possibility, of course, but being actually there for the commencement in person, but still to find another way to celebrate. Why trap ourselves to just one possibility when there's so many other ways that we've never even considered, simply because this was the status quo?
Great. So as a reminder, we do have a couple of minutes, but as a reminder for folks that we do record this session and we'll be posting it online. But President Castro, any final comments for the students who are still online with us tonight?
Yes, I'll be brief. I want to thank you for joining us. Your voices matter to me, and I know to Hisham and all of us. Our goal is to make sure that we boldly educate and empower each of you for success. That's our mission. And if we fall short of that in your mind, I invite you to tell us. You can find me in lots of different ways. Social media, you can direct message me on Twitter or on Instagram at Joseph I. Castro, or email me through my office. I will do everything I can with my colleagues to support your success. And again, I know it's a challenging time, but I ask you to lean into your education. This is the time to do it. And you're going to find that you'll grow and you'll be even stronger than ever when we get through this pandemic. And you'll be able to address whatever challenges come your way later more forcefully because of this experience that you've gone through, that we've all gone through together. Hisham?
Certainly. I might not be as social media savvy as President Castro myself, as I don't have a Twitter. But also, the best way we can know what you need is you by telling us and what other questions you have. Unfortunately, we're not mind readers, and that's the biggest challenge as always. So please continue to voice your opinions. Tell us the questions you're running into and address any situation that you have, and let us know, because we'd love to help out in any way and in any capacity we really can. As the theme of tonight, collaboration. So we thank you all for your collaboration, and we urge you to continue to collaborate, whether that's in the classroom, whether it's through clubs, or whether that's even in your own place with your family as well. And collaboration is key, and also having an open mind to new possibilities. So thank you again, as it really means a lot for you all even to take an hour out of your time and let us know about your thoughts, some of the concerns you're running into, especially during a time of pandemic and with everything else going on in 2020. So just a few last things is just thank you as always. keep asking your questions, and keep wearing your masks and stay safe as well.
Great. Wonderful note to end on. Well, President Castro, thank you for your time, Hisham, and to all of our students who are on today.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.